Before you decide what you believe about Jesus, hear the full story. Not the religious version, not the political version, the real story. He had no army, no money, no throne. Yet 2,000 years later, the world still speaks his name. He was born in a stable in Bethlehem, raised in a small town called Nazareth, and executed outside Jerusalem. His followers were fishermen, his enemies were powerful leaders, and his weapon was love. They tried to silence him with a cross, but 3 days later, the grave was empty, and everything changed. Stay with me, because this story might change you too.
Before the world knew his name, before churches were built, before history books were written, he was born in silence. Not in a palace, not surrounded by kings, but in a small town called Bethlehem. The night was cold, the sky was filled with quiet stars, and in a stable meant for animals, a child was placed in a manger. His mother, Mary, held him close. She didn't fully understand the future, but she knew this child was different. This was not an ordinary birth. This was prophecy fulfilled, a promise spoken generations before. Angels announced his arrival. Shepherds came running in awe. Even wise men traveled from distant lands. Yet he grew up in simplicity. Raised in Nazareth, he learned carpentry. He worked with his hands. He lived quietly. No army followed him. No throne awaited him. No crown rested on his head. For 30 years, he walked among ordinary people. Then one day, everything changed. At the Jordan River, John the Baptist saw him approaching. The water moved gently. The crowd watched in silence. As Jesus stepped into the river, he wasn't beginning his life, he was revealing his mission. When John baptized him, the heavens opened. A voice thundered from above, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." And in that moment, history began to shift. The carpenter from Nazareth was about to change the world.
After the river, after the voice from heaven, Jesus began to walk from village to village, not with soldiers, not with wealth, but with truth. In towns like Capernaum, crowds gathered wherever he went. The blind cried out and received sight. The lame stood up and walked home. The sick were healed with just a touch. One night, a violent storm shook the sea. Waves crashed against the boat. Fear filled the hearts of his disciples. But Jesus stood up and spoke 3 words, "Peace, be still," and the wind obeyed him. Yet his greatest miracles were not the ones that shocked the crowds. It was when he forgave sinners, when he touched lepers no one else would touch, when he defended the broken and ashamed. He spoke of a kingdom, not built with walls, but built inside the human heart. Love your enemies, forgive again, blessed are the merciful. People felt hope again, but not everyone was happy. Religious leaders felt threatened because Jesus exposed hypocrisy. He challenged pride. He brought light into dark systems. The more he loved, the more resistance grew. And slowly, a plan began forming against him. It began with betrayal. One of his own disciples sold him for silver. He was arrested at night, dragged before courts, falsely accused, mocked, beaten, spat upon. A crown of thorns pressed into his head. He could have called down angels. He could have stopped it all. But he chose silence. Carrying a wooden cross, he walked toward Golgotha, a hill of execution. The crowd shouted. The sky grew heavy. Nails were driven into his hands, into his feet. And still, he said, "Father, forgive them." When he breathed his last, darkness covered the land.
For a moment, it looked like hope had died. His body was placed in a tomb. A stone was rolled in front. But 3 days later, the earth trembled. The stone was rolled away. The tomb was empty. Death had been defeated. The cross was not the end. It was the beginning. And from that morning forward, the message spread across the world. Love is stronger than hate. Grace is greater than sin. And life is stronger than death.